Hi, and welcome to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast right here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel. It's a special edition today, and I'm really excited, as well as I'm sure you guys as well, as it's our NCAA tournament show. And a lot of great picks coming your way and a lot of good thoughts from for the best in the industry. Yes, I'm one of them. Boy, oh boy, that sounds egotistical, but it is what it is. And the other three are Mr. Jesse Schule, Mr. Doug Upstone from DocSports.com, and Mr. Sean Higgs of Winner's Circle, of GamblersWorld.net. Again, our sponsor, GamblersWorld.net, folks. If you go there right now, we have some specials going on. It's $199. We'll get you the rest of the March Madness package, which includes the NCAA tournament, CBI, and NIT. That's guaranteed, folks. If you don't win, you don't make a profit. Then we will give you a credit back, the exact amount of what you paid for your specific purchase. Also, starting tomorrow, if you purchase any one of the first four games in the NCAA tournament, Tuesday and Wednesday, all four being played in Dayton, we will give you a $50 credit toward on the site toward anything you would like to purchase. And that includes win or loss. You're going to get a $50 credit just by purchasing one of the first four games at gamblersworld.net. That's, again, $199 for the March Madness special from any one of us. And also, like I just alluded to, pick or purchase one of the first four games, and you will get a $50 credit at the site. And I got more exciting stuff to discuss with you in terms of savings and contests and whatever have you. But let's get right to our guest here, Mr. Jesse Schule. How are you, my friend? The guy they call Jesse the Jewel Schule in the great country of Thailand. How are you, my friend?
Well, Ross, I was good once, but I'm not as good as I once was. Coming off a bit of a rough weekend, looking to pick up the pieces here with the early action in the NCAA tournament, but feeling pretty good about it and really excited to be on such a prestigious panel of experts with the new addition, Doug Upstone, and the same old crew. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, I told my wife the same thing last night, Jesse. I was good once. Anyway, Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, folks. He's the lone exception on our podcast where we have everybody from GamblersWorld.net, with the exception of Doug, who's been with me from the beginning. It's the grandfather clause with my man, and it's not insinuating he's an old man, even though we're getting up there in age. Doug, how are you?
It's true. Don't have to sugarcoat it, Ross. It's all right. I look in the mirror every day and I wonder what happened. Speaking of what used to be. So anyways, Go ahead.
All right. Mr. Sean Higgs, always a outspoken one on our
what's
show.
Doug complaining about? Doug, I mean, the guy's got the most hair out of everybody on the show. What's he complaining about being old? He's got your beat, Jesse. You got a hat on. Come on.
Ross has got a great head of hair there, too. So, Jesse's good. Sean, you said you were going to grow your hair. Didn't you say that last week on Twitter? You're ready to start growing it back?
Or? Oh, you like that? Yeah, I put out my little senior yearbook photo from prom.
Did he have hair? Did you have hair in that photo?
Yeah.
He looked like he could start for Duke.
Yeah, Jesse's like, you look like you could play for Duke. I look like I was a small forward on Duke with my hair.
All right, so here's what we're going to do on today's show, folks. We are all assigned a specific region, the NCAA tournament. We're going to break this up into 5 segments. Each one of us is going to give you an upset pick in the first round in each of our regions. Then we'll all comment on that pick or what we think may be a possible upset. And then we'll get to the portion of the show in which we will pick a sleeper pick in each one of our regions. That's a team that's got attractive money line odds to get to the Final Four, and not exactly our top team to win that region, but almost like a backup plan, So, and then we're going to go to each one of us who are going to give our predictions on who we like to win our regions. And then we're going to go over each one of us Final Four predictions. And then finally, we'll close it out by giving you, I should say, all of our national championship picks. So looking forward to that. Let's get her going. And we're going to start with the Midwest region, which is assigned to the South region, which is assigned to Mr. Jesse Schule. Jesse, take it away. What's your first round upset you're looking at here in the South region?
Well, Ross, you probably know by now, I don't like to bet just based on systems. I don't like to follow trends blindly. I like to buck trends. And, everybody's got a system where they bet the 12 seeds to upset the 5 seeds. And I really dislike that. But, you asked for a sleeper. I'm looking down the board. This is the one that kept on popping out as a distinct possibility. And as I've said before, you got to do all the research. You got to weigh all the pros and cons, let the evidence stack up. And there's a lot of things that the James Madison Dukes have going for them against the Wisconsin Badgers. They come in on an enormous win streak. They've got seniors up and down the lineup. Even their backups are seniors. And, whiskey, I actually like whiskey. A lot of people don't like whiskey, but they can be had. They can be had. And
yeah, that came out, Jesse. Yeah, I like whiskey.
I actually don't touch whiskey as a drink, but Wisconsin, the Badgers, I don't mind the Badgers, but I think they're going to get a run for their money here in the first round. So the most likely upset to me is James Madison, and it's got nothing to do with the seeding and everything to do with the experience and the fact that they're just a damn good basketball team.
I agree, because the bracket I filled out this morning, I have James Madison advancing over Wisconsin. So, yeah, that's a James Madison team. They started the season with an upset win at Michigan State, and you look at the rest of the resume, their non-conference resume beyond Michigan State isn't impressive in terms of scheduling. But, I mean, this is a team that's won all season long, and they're not a fluke. Anyway, Doug, I know your preference isn't always whiskey, but I don't think you shy away from one if I put a shot in front of you. But what do you think?
To answer your question, it would be yes. Okay. If you put a shot in front of me, we don't even have to talk about whiskey. Anyways, no. So that's that 12-5 stuff. I understand where Jesse's coming from, and I have a little bit of trepidation about it only because it's such a popular pick already. Yeah. I mean, literally from last night, it was a popular public pick from there. But the one thing I look for is teams that did play 4 games or more in their conference tournaments that advanced to the tournament. That's, to me, is not a positive, because Wisconsin came into the tournament having lost 8 of 11, so they just got hot. Now, does that continue going forward? It's not a particularly good defensive team. And really, when you look at James Madison's schedule, or however you want to look at it, is that the only team they had trouble with all year was Appalachian State, because that's 2 of their 3 losses. So, even though the line's going down, I still see I still like James Madison to at least with the points against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I would think, Sean, that this is a popular upset pick in the first round. Based on the talking heads, us, complying with that. But in any event, what's your thoughts?
It was, this one or the Grand Canyon game would probably be the biggest, like, here comes the public in the 12-5 kind of match. But I like Madison, and I actually bet Madison at a 4.5 last night. So I'm with Jesse on James Madison. That's it. What's there to say? Not a fan of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, veteran team, started out great and went through a lull, as Doug just pointed out. Got hot at the right time during the conference tournament, gave Illinois all they could handle beat Purdue, and gave Illinois everything they could handle in the Big Ten championship game before losing. So there you have it. James Madison is the popular pick, upset pick in round 1 in the South region. Let's go to Doug in the West. And Doug, what's your take here on what may be a possible upset that people need to keep an eye on in round 1?
Well, first, the 2 things I'd like to cover real quick first is that emailed the owner of this site, Jim Quinn, and I asked and see if he could get me some prop bets. And so I put down, and it was only 2-1, that I would get the West region, and that Ross would get the East. So I already won a 2-1 bet on that one to get things started. So I get the West region. I start doing it, and everything yesterday or last night. And so I think, okay, first game I'm taking right off the bat, I got New Mexico over Clemson. Okay, lower seed, I figure that one. So I go and look it up. New Mexico's favorite. I thought, okay, well, let's go to the second choice. Second choice, let's take Nevada over Dayton. Okay, because that's another one I like. Okay, Nevada's favorite. So now I'm down to my third choice. Okay, even though I'm lower seeds, so I'm going to go with Mississippi State in this one. Even though it's the only region, well, I think there's only 4 where the lower seed is the 3 of the 4 are underdogs in one region. But, my feeling here is Tom Izzo is going down the same path as Jim Boeheim and Judd Heathcote. Okay. It's just slipping away from him a little bit at a time. He's not the recruiter he used to be. The staff that he has, just not getting the job done, and hasn't really worked the transfer portal all that well. The Bulldogs match up well. They can rebound with Michigan State. They have better athletes. I just think that Mississippi State, even though they're not a great team either, I think they'll be able to take care of Michigan State and bounce them out in the first round.
And again, like with Jesse, I agree. I got Mississippi State in my bracket advancing in this game. Sean, I know you're going to have some thoughts on this, but not only was I surprised that Michigan State made the tournament, a number 9 seed beside. Come on. I just don't.
We were talking about this.
Yeah.
Was it 2 weeks ago? I'm like, they're going to, Pitt's not going to get in, or Syracuse is going to get in. And they had the same record, as a better record than Michigan State. But they got Michigan State locked in this thing at 19-15. They ended up 19-14.
Yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned, Boeheim and Judd Heathcote. How about going the Nick Saban route with Izzo? It's kind of like the game, and it's changed, but more with the nil money kind of stuff. Just it's just not the same. And this is a team. It could be dangerous. Let's be honest. You got probably some NBA type talent on Michigan State. They usually go on runs, but I'm with you. I'm actually pulling up because I did earlier. I'm looking for my my bet here on Mississippi State. I did it's not loading up properly. I took them to make a Sweet 16 run here with Mississippi State. So I'm with you over Michigan State. And like you, Doug, you look at that bracket, all the teams you all mentioned, like Nevada's basically playing a home game there, and it's. The whole bracket talk is another thing. I feel, and we'll probably talk about when Ross gets his bracket, that UConn bracket I think is ridiculous. I was talking about that last night on my show. Holy cow. Every conference tournament winner is in that bracket.
Yeah.
Yep.
How is that? What were they doing to UConn? I guess they don't want UConn to repeat.
Yeah. To me, I'll get to that later. I think that bracket, honestly, I don't see it as, I think it's the easiest bracket in the tournament.
That's what Jesse said.
Yeah.
It's an easy bracket.
I see that bracket playing true to form, and I really had to scramble for an upset pick in that bracket. But Jesse, anyway, Mississippi State as an upset pick over Michigan State. Again, Jesse, I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Sean. I somewhat knew what Sean's answer was going to be because we discussed this in past shows. But Michigan State making the tournament, number 1. A number 9 seed, number 2.
Brand name, Ross, brand name. And I'll have more to say about that when I give out my final 4 picks. But I'm going to concur with these gentlemen. I do like Mississippi State in that matchup. I also like what Sean said about Grand Canyon. St. Mary's on their best day can beat anybody. On their worst day, they could lose to anybody. So they're a team that could get picked off. And to what Doug was saying about the Mountain West teams, look, I feel we talked about Baylor before. Baylor was a hot pick a while back. This is a team that could go, not so much lately, but a couple of weeks ago, people were really hot on Baylor. And I said they'll probably lose in the second round to a Mountain West team, thinking that would be a big upset. And that we were all rubbing our hands together thinking about getting these Mountain West teams as dogs in the tournament. Well, no such luck. They're all favored. They're all favorites. it seems to me that the value has shifted a little bit, almost to the point where I'm going to say they're overrated. I mean, as much respect as I have for the Mountain West and as good as those teams were and are, there's a lot of other good teams in the tournament too, and I'm not sure that it appears to me that they're a little bit overvalued.
Yeah, the Mountain West guys. Just before we go on to Sean's pick, they got all six of the teams we expected to get in. I mean, especially with New Mexico winning the conference tournament with that great run they had. But you look at the seedings.
Yes.
Other than San Diego State, the other 5 teams, the committee really didn't show a lot of respect for. Doug, start with you.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this. I mean, did anybody? I mean, the thought of them getting 6 teams in kind of was the deal, not necessarily where they would be seated. And so from that standpoint, you watch the level of play, and it is good, but it is not what I would call elite. I'm not sure where any of these teams would necessarily fall in terms of if they were in quote unquote power conference. And the other thing that I'm looking at, and this is looking at KenPom, one of the things that's floating around and has been this past week is that either to pick a champion, if they were in the top 25, if for adjusted offense and defense, so there's that group of teams, or I saw other ones that said top 25 in offense, top 40 in defense. Well, the one team that's even close is New Mexico. New Mexico's 41st in defense. And so from that standpoint, I mean, to me, New Mexico's as good a team playing right now there is in that conference. And I think that, I guess here's the question. Do you really think that they're going to do more than 3-3 in the first round of the tournament? Just straight up.
Yeah, I think they would be happy with 3-3, Doug. You know what I mean? I think the conference would be happy if they can get 2 teams into the Sweet 16. I think it would overall 6 teams in the tournament and 2 teams to the Sweet 16 would be a dream year for the Mountain West. But I do think it's a bit of an underrated conference. And Jesse, you know what? We've been talking about this, and you've been saying one thing right along when we discuss Baylor. I predict, this is paraphrasing Jesse, I predict that Baylor will lose to a Mountain West Conference team in the second round. And lo and behold, Doug brought up New Mexico, and there's a potential matchup there in the second round between Baylor and New Mexico. And Doug, you said New Mexico number 41 at KenPom in adjusted defensive efficiency. This is where I look at, okay, the overall numbers for the entire year, but how does a team do coming down the stretch? I think the one thing that impressed me most with New Mexico, Jesse, in the Mountain West Conference is how they ratcheted up their defense. I mean, they were absolutely dominating defensively throughout that 4-game run to win the Mountain West.
Yeah, no, I mean, impressive, certainly. And I might have to, sit and wait for that matchup to unfold and get lock that one in as soon as it becomes an actual matchup.
There you go. Sean, thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll head just right into my upset pick since I'm doing the Midwest with the Mountain West. And you mentioned the seeding, and you got 2 teams in playing games, and your champion that is a 5 seed was a 4 seed in your own conference tournament, even though they're a favorite to win it. I like the Mountain West. I thought now the seedings are a little crazy, as Doug said, but is that fair? Because the Big 12 cannibalizes itself, losing on each other's home courts, but that's okay because it's a Big 12. Mountain West needs some wins, and I think we're going to get some because I got Colorado State here as my little upset special, and we're going to run it. Not only are you going to be Virginia, a terrible team. Talk about a team who shouldn't get in.
Yeah.
I mean, no. I mean, besides the fact you need overtime in both of your games in a tournament, in 4 to 6 games before that, you couldn't crack 50 points. Who wants to see that? This is a day and age where college teams are shooting 43 pointers at a time. What are we doing here? They're putting this team in here. No, thank you. I know that's a kind of a brand name with the coach out there, but no, thank you. I got Colorado State there, yes, and then over Texas. Like who's Texas' best win? against Baylor at home. Like, who is their best win?
They're erratic.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm going to
they're
be getting a
erratic.
couple points. What is that line going to be? They'll probably be like a 2-point. I'm sure they'll probably be like a 2-point dog. I mean, I like Colorado State. You lost to St. Mary's by 3. Who's a tough team. This is the team that beat Creighton by like 15-20 on the neutral. They took care of a pretty good Creighton team. And this goes back to I'm getting in any kind of underdog role, no matter who it is. Big brother, little brother. Like Mountain West is a Pac-12 little brother. They're going to want to say, hey, we're for real. I'm going to get to play an ACC team. Let's show you how good we are, especially a team that can't score. And then I got a Texas team that's okay at best. I mean, it's nothing special. Give me Colorado State upset special.
And to what you're saying,
there's your
Sean,
2 wins.
and
There's 2 of the 4 wins they need.
And to that point, no, I'm just going to say one last thing is on this is that, I think there'll be a great deal of motivation because I think from a conference standpoint, they're happy that they got the 6 teams in, but I do believe, and even just comments that you read on Twitter and stuff, that they believe that they should have had some higher seeds than what they did also. Yeah. So I think that's just extra motivation.
Yeah. Izzo gets his seed because he's Tom Izzo and Michigan State.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Virginia because that was another shocker to me. Look, they go into the ACC tournament as a bubble team, okay? They beat Boston College in overtime. They go to the conference semifinal and they lose in overtime. And they end up getting in the tournament. I just don't get it. And a team like Indiana State gets left out. That's a shame. Especially, I mean, look, we had an oddity happen this year. We had 5 teams steal bids in their conference tournaments. And what I mean by that is in 5 conferences got one more bid than the committee actually had them getting because of the upsets that occurred in those specific conferences. And for example, the ACC was one of them with NC State. But anyway, Jesse, your thoughts, and then we'll move on to my upset pick.
Yeah, when it comes to Colorado State, the fact that they're a 2.5-point favorite against Virginia, I think is telling me exactly what I've been saying. Is I think that the Mountain West is getting a ton of respect, and as much as I agree that Virginia isn't that good and shouldn't be a favorite against Colorado State, I'm not sure they should be a dog either. You look at Virginia getting bounced out of the tournament, their last 3 years when they've been bounced out of the tournament, a 1-point loss to Furman last year, a 1-point loss the previous year, I think it was 52-51, and then the previous loss, an overtime loss to Texas Tech. Virginia has that tendency to get involved in these low-scoring games, and they come up short in these low-scoring games a lot. I think that 2.5 is kind of tempting for me.
Yeah, to me, I agree with Sean. I got Colorado State advancing. I think Colorado State is a much better team than even the record indicates. Remember, they played without 2 of their starters, their backcourt starters for a portion of the season as well. And, Doug, Virginia, correct me if I'm wrong, not only the results that Jesse just alluded to and some close losses in the NCAA tournament, I believe, did they lose as a number 1 seed? Weren't they one of the 2 number 1 seeds?
UMBC.
They were the first one.
Yeah, so it's not like right.
They
So
do play close. They were a favorite over Furman. They lost. Then 2 years ago, the 52-51 loss to St. Bonnie's as a favorite. They needed overtime to beat North Texas. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it's not like there's a good track record there. I mean, they did win a national championship under Tony Bennett, but by the same token, they've had their share of shocking losses too. And I think
Ohio in the first round.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys. If my recollection is Virginia, when I was going through everything this morning, they've scored less than 50 points in 4 of their last 9 games.
For your last 6, I mean, forget about the tournament. They put a 41 spot up, 41, 44, 48. 2 points. You need more. 6 points, I'd say, okay, maybe you got a shot. 2 points. So they're going to hold these guys to 50 points?
Yeah.
In their defense, though, in those games, they were using peach baskets, so it was a little harder, to get the ball through all the way through. So I'll give them that on that one at least.
Yeah, I think they were using peach baskets in the Big 12 championship game too, because Houston couldn't put it in the ocean. They scored 41 points against Iowa State's a good defensive team, but I have a hard time. I know it's only one result. You shouldn't overreact to a bad loss. I've been, personifying saying that right along over the last few years, but the bottom line is that really concerns me for Houston. They struggle to score at times, and
but I think the regular season game, Ross, wasn't that like a 56-53 kind of game too between those two guys? Yeah. So it's not really shocking they scored 40. That could have went.
41's a shock, Judge.
It is, yeah, but also
in a conference championship game when anybody involved, let alone a supposed national title contender. So,
but once you're down a chunk and then you're thinking, you know what, whatever here, let's just go through the motions, get out here because we are Houston. All I need's some guy rolling their knee or some nonsense that always seems to happen to us the last 5.
And once you're up a chunk, you usually let off the gas pedal defensively too. So Again, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you, Sean. 41 points from a supposed national title contender is pathetic in a championship game. So, again, we'll see what happens. Again, I hate to contradict myself and say you shouldn't overreact when you see sometimes a team like Houston isn't as bad as they looked in the last game, and they were not as good as they looked at certain times this year. But we'll see what develops. Let me get to my game. It comes in my East region, and boy, oh boy, guys, I scrambled there. The only two games that when I initially looked at the seedings, I said, okay, well, Drake looks like a good play, but like Doug just said, Drake is now a favorite as a number 10 seed over the number 7 seed. And I scrambled down the line. I just don't want to throw darts up against the wall and say, okay, let me go with this, but the one game that stood out a little to me, and I'm not crazy about it at that, is Duquesne. They opened as an 8-point dog, by the way. They're up to 9.5, so the public has been hammering the other side on this game, which is BYU. I don't know. Duquesne, to me, is going to be one of those frustrating teams to play, especially for a team like BYU. I'm not exactly sure this is a great matchup for BYU from this standpoint. They like to play fast, and Duquesne can really, really frustrate you. They play a slower tempo, and I've been harping on veteran guards at this time of year, and Duquesne has some pretty good veteran guards that could give you a lot of headaches. And defensively, this team is sound. This is a team that started out 0-5 in the Atlantic 10. And then they went on to win 15 of their next 18 games. Impressive run in the Atlantic 10 tournament with their last 3 wins coming over St. Bonaventure, Dayton, and then yesterday in the final against VCU. This is, to me, this is one of those games that not a lot of people might be looking at, and the obvious choice looks like it would be BYU to advance here because they play in the Big 12, and they've had a fabulous year. But beware of the underdog that not a lot of people are giving a lot of credit here. And I think I'm going to have a small lean here toward Duquesne pulling the outright upset over BYU. And I know I'm going out on a limb here, guys, but I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys see a better underdog in the East in the first round for a potential upset, Sean, we talked off air, or was it on air? I think it was on air. I think the East is the softest bracket in the NCAA tournament, and I think this is set up to play true to form more than any other region. But
I think exactly the opposite. I think this is the most crazy bracket. I mean, you have Florida Atlantic, who was in the Final Four last year. You have San Diego State. I don't know. How were they last year? I mean, besides being Mountain West champions this year as a 4 seed in their own conference, but they were favored to win it. That's what the odds makers think of them. American champion, UAB, SEC champs, Auburn, Ivy champs, Yale, A-10 champs, Duquesne, Big Ten champs, Illinois, Ohio Valley, Moorhead, Drake, Missouri Valley, Iowa State, Big 12, and the Summit Champs. Who's the softie in this group? You have teams all on 5 or more game win streaks coming to town.
I'm not sold on San Diego State only because, not because of the caliber of team they are, because of the potential second round matchup against Auburn. I think that's a bad matchup for them. But Doug, what's your thoughts on this region?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is the toughest region. It doesn't mean that the best team won't emerge, because if you look at some of these other teams, there are, even though they've all won, there are some flaws that you can find about any of the teams. And to your point, Ross, is specifically on the game. I think you have some good, valid points here. I don't know that I can go against BYU from a straight up standpoint, because they shoot the ball, the 3 ball so well, just across the board. So that's the one thing that I think that will be their undoing. But if you ask me, can Duquesne cover the spread against BYU, especially BYU not playing at home, even though they do have some nice road wins in the Big 12? Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. And let's face it, Keith Dumbrot, I mean, he did a really nice job at Akron. Okay. He got them to the tournament 3 different times, to the NCAA tournament. So he is a very good coach, and of course we know the history with LeBron James and all that stuff. So I could see him covering, but for me, as an outright upset, that's a little tougher. I'm going to let you own that one, Ross.
Yeah, and I'll take ownership. I mean, again, I had a difficult time coming up with an underdog upset pick in the first round, and I'm going to bank on the fact, in Duquesne, they say, and Sean said it a million times over the year, the great equalizer for an underdog is the ability to hit a 3-point shot. Duquesne isn't a great 3-point shooting team, but they were in the tournament. And over their last 5 games, they hit around 38% of their 3-point shots. Even though they don't put up a lot of threes, I'm banking on the fact their defense prowess and their slow down style will give BYU fits. Again, I'm going out on a limb, but Jesse, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think this is the toughest region, but I do think it's the toughest region to pick a first round upset in. And I don't blame you for going with Duquesne. I might have done the same. You sort of look at it, and that looks like it has the potential to be a competitive game. That said, I wouldn't bet on Duquesne with Sean Higgs's money. I still like BYU in that matchup. So I'm out. I'm out on Duquesne. I'm out on any first-round upsets, really. And I want to talk about FAU because, it does seem like everybody's down on it. Oh, FAU, they're not as good this year. They're yesterday's team, but I mean, it's basically the same team. They didn't win the American. They stepped up in class a little bit, moving their first season in the American. They did all right. They won a bunch of games. I mean, they get knocked out of the conference tournament in a 1-point game versus a Temple team that something was fishy with those guys. Something stinks and rotten in Denmark. I still think FAU is fully capable of making some noise in that region and in the tournament. So they're a sleeper pick for me.
Yeah, let's not forget FAU went to Arizona earlier this year and knocked off the Wildcats on the road. So that's a team that's fully capable. And sometimes a team like FAU, they'll rise to the occasion, they'll rise to the challenge. But I just don't like what I saw from them in conference play down the stretch. They weren't dominating like I thought they would be. Yes, they stepped up in class going to the AAC compared to Conference USA. But we'll see. It wouldn't shock me, Jesse, if they make a run. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever, just based on last year's experience. All right, let's go to each one of our regions, and now we're going to give you a sleeper pick, which means not necessarily what our pick is going to be to win the region, but almost like a backup plan, a team that we think has betting value in terms of a futures odds to win the region. And let's start with Doug on this one in the West. Doug, take it away, my friend.
Okay, yeah, and this is, as you said, like with your BYU pick, this is a kind of a slim pickings for me on this one. Other than I look at North Carolina and Arizona, I'm not sure who's going to knock them off. But if there's one team, at least theoretically, that has a possibility, to me, it's Alabama. Now, I realize they played no defense. They just let the opposing team go up and down the floor, but boy, can they score, and they put so much pressure on opposing teams with their offense. If they get any sort of defensive help, do I think they can knock off both of those teams going forward? Not necessarily, but if I have to choose one team, I think they're the best option in order to do that. So I'll go with Alabama as a sleeper pick to win the West.
All right, Sean. So Bo Kimball is probably licking his chops watching Alabama play because Bo Kimball, formerly of Loyola Marymount days, and that was a team that played a similar style to Alabama back then, where they gave up a lot of points, but they certainly scored a lot. What's your take here?
Alabama, you just got to worry about the defense,
Yeah.
But when we were talking about doing the upsets, or your kind of sleeper kind of picks, I didn't know where to go with crazy. What would be considered a upset? Are we on my upset, or are we just asking about Doug's play?
Either or.
I'll just run out. So my kind of run team here would be Creighton. I thought they were going to be a good team coming into the season. We saw their best work was obviously the UConn destruction. So I was kind of tossed up onto going deep. Maybe I was thinking maybe South Carolina, but we saw them kind of lose handily to Auburn and Alabama. So I don't know if they could keep up with a Creighton team that could pretty much score at will at times too. So I'm going to go Creighton as my deep run here, and also as a Final Four selection, believe it or not. Not sold on that Tennessee team.
So Sean's getting ahead of himself a little bit, but we'll retouch that stuff. That's okay. Look at I got one team going to the Elite Eight that might surprise people, but I really like this Nevada team. I know they lost in the conference tournament, but this is a team that, up until the conference tournament was a top 25 team. And I really like their style of play. They're well coached. Steve Alford, former star at Indiana, former head coach over at New Mexico as well. I got them going to the Elite Eight, where they'll take on North Carolina. But I think this team is a real sleeper to me in terms of a possibility of making a deeper run than a lot of people will realize. But anyway, Alabama, what bothers me with Alabama is the same thing what you guys just mentioned. They're capable of beating anybody because they're explosive offensively, but they don't even show me that they want to play any defense at all. They're not even showing indicators that, okay, what's costing us right now is defense. It's just they continue to play the same style and hope for different results. And to me, when you play that poor defense, a deep run in the tournament is highly improbable to me. And with no disrespect to Doug, because he just touched upon the fact it was he had a scramble to come up with a team as a sleeper in that region. So Jesse.
So when we talk about Alabama and their lack of discipline on defense, I will be careful in how I word this, but perhaps it shouldn't be a surprise when you look back to last season and how they handled a particular incident with a guy by the name of Brandon Miller and a firearm that he happened to have himself involved with, and how the coaching staff handled that situation. It doesn't look like there's a lot of accountability and a lot of discipline being doled out in that Alabama program. And that might explain it. So I don't love Alabama. I think they're talented enough, great on offense. They can beat anybody, as Ross said, but they're not a team that I want to go to the bank with. I guess that wraps it up. That wraps up my opinion on Alabama.
All right. Somebody asks, is Jesse going to talk? Well, he just talked. Okay. I mean, come on. There's four of us on the show. Come on. Anyway, let's get to Sean. You really showed your hand in terms of who you like to come out of this region, your region, that is, because you said they're a sleeper pick and your pick to come out of the region. So anything else you want to elaborate in that regard?
I didn't do my sleeper pick yet, if you want to get into that.
Yeah, I just want to touch with Sean, and then we'll go to Jesse.
I like Creighton. That's it. Nothing else to say. Let's go. The public wants Jesse. Everybody's looking for Jesse. Let the guy speak. The public they're calling for their man.
All right.
Yeah.
Since you're in high gear, Jesse, go ahead.
So the sleeper pick for the South will be Texas Tech, and I know they did get clobbered by Houston a couple times during the regular season. They didn't show any signs of being able to compete with Houston. They do have things going for them. Excellent three-point shooting, the best free throw shooting team in the Big 12. Free throw shooting could be key in so many games. And maybe they get lucky and somebody else takes out Houston before they have to face them. That's probably their best shot, to be honest. But I just think this Texas Tech team can play with anybody based on and actually their coach is another thing they got going for them. The guy won the NIT with Texas or North Texas last year, so a guy that's had some success in tournaments. Three-point shooting and free throw shooting can carry you a long way in a tournament. So Texas Tech for the 16-1 payout to win the South.
That's sound reasoning, because if you're an underdog, three-point shooting could be the great equalizer. If you're ahead late in games in the NCAA tournament, the ability to knock down free throws when the team behind is trying to extend games is paramount. And Texas Tech does that. If you want a great example of a team that can't knock down free throws, that blew a game, all you had to do is look at Loyola Chicago in the game against St. Bonaventure. Look at Virginia. That's going to be their biggest detriment. I mean, this is a team that shoots 63% from the free throw line. So you're never out of a game if you're behind against Virginia if you want to play the foul game. But all right, let me get to my pick, sleeper pick in the East, and that's Illinois. I said it last week on the show. I said that this team, if they're right mentally, has the ability to be a Final Four team. And you look at what they did in the Big Ten tournament, and they got a bona fide star in senior Terrence Shannon Jr. This guy was just unbelievable in the Big Ten tournament. He averaged 34 points per game in their 3 wins in the Big Ten. They got size, they rebound, they're athletic, they could shoot the three. And that's my biggest fear for who I'm going to take to win my region. And that my region pick is going to be UConn. So we'll get that out of the way right off the bat. I like UConn to win the East, but my biggest fear when it comes to UConn not advancing to the Final Four is not Iowa State more than it is Illinois. So again, Illinois is my pick as a sleeper in the East. Sean?
I like Jesse's Texas Tech there. You know, you got NC State off of a huge win. And what Illinois, as I said, you have a team coming in off a conference tournament championship, playing hot. You have a star player who can carry a team. That's what the tournament's about. Yeah. And it's a battle-tested team. It's not like they shy away. This is a team that you could say, all right, you know, someone says Final Four. Would you be shocked? I wouldn't be shocked during the Final Four, Illinois. Not at all. They're a good squad. I like both of the sleepers here.
Doug, how much weight do you put in not only a team that got hot at the right time in the Big Ten tournament, but a team that was talented to start with, and even without those performances by Terrence Shannon Jr., last week I still thought that they were a legitimate Final Four contender. But when you have a star player that's playing the way Terrence Shannon is right now, and with the surrounding talent that he has, he doesn't have to be a one-man band, but he's capable of doing so, as we saw in the conference tournament. What's your thoughts, my man?
Well, first of all, I'm going to support you, Ross, across the board here. Okay, just right off the top. So we're good there. The other thing, I mean, Illinois. The one thing that was odd to me is, and this is their likely bugaboo, but could they upset Connecticut? Yes, I believe they could, and I think they could take down Iowa State in the right circumstance because of how good they are offensively. The problem I see with Illinois, though, is defensively. In watching all 3 games from start to finish, they probably played about what I would say. So they played 120 minutes. I'd say about 30 to 35 minutes of good defense, and that's part of their problem. Okay, and that's why even they should be extending some of these leads in games that they've had, and they just don't. And they just just mentally aren't connected enough to play defense. But if you look at the roster, I mean, there's more than enough talent here in terms of whether it be Shannon, with isolations that they can get different guys. Gary A's a really nice player. Rogers coming off the bench, and Dinja now he found himself after being basically sitting on the bench almost all the season, playing 7 minutes a game. In this tournament, he was a factor in 2 of the 3 games at various points. So Illinois is a very capable team. They just will have to play some defense in order to do it.
All right, so there you have it. Jesse, do you have anything orange that you want to show us, right, like Doug just did with Illinois? I've never seen you with anything orange since I've known you, but in any event, what's your thoughts, Doug or Jesse?
Orange, maybe the tone of my skin is orange, but yeah, no, I do like Illinois as a sleeper. I mean, I agree with what Doug said, though. I don't necessarily see them beating UConn. I think UConn comes out of the East, but yeah, Illinois is going to be a tough nut to crack. They'll get a few wins under their belt before they get there, I guess.
All right, so UConn is my pick in the East. Jesse, you're picking the South.
Duke, and it's tough to say why. I mean, Duke, just the 5-star recruits, the NBA future NBA players, the history, the blue blood. They always find a way to get there. They play pretty good defense. They might be the second best defensive team behind Houston in that region. And Houston, to me, you mentioned it, Ross, that the concern that they stop scoring and they look like they can be beaten, they can be had. I think Duke can play with anybody. I like Duke to come out of the South.
All right, UConn in the East, Duke in the South. Who's going to win the West, Doug?
Here's the thing. I think it's North Carolina and Arizona are the 2 teams here. And one of the criteria that I use to, let's just say, win the national championship, it's really simple. Who can win 6 games? Okay, so that's the thing. That's what I look for. So in order to win this, you got to win 4. And from that standpoint, can Arizona win 4 games? Yes, they certainly can. But here's the thing: is that they play so well and then they just stop, and I have no idea as to why. The losses are just befuddling, and I just think that North Carolina is a more consistent team just overall. I mean, you could make a case Arizona has better talent. No question in my mind that argument holds water, but I'm going to go with the Tar Heels to do the job. I just think they're the more consistent team, and that's where I'll stick with them. And their defense, by the way.
I agree with the sentiments on Arizona. I've watched them at times this year where it's like, wow, who's going to beat this team? And then they'll lay an egg in the following game. And it's like you said, it's befuddling. And I can't describe a better adjective than that. So if that's an adjective, or is it a verb? I don't know. But Sean Higgs.
It's a word.
What do you, Sean Higgs?
I got a Duke. I got Duke minus 135. I just had to log in to see what I had because I was mentioning the Mississippi State for a Sweet 16 runs plus 375. I took a Duke minus 135. So I went on that a Duke play.
All right. In the Midwest, Midwest, Sean is Creighton, correct?
Oh, it's Creighton. It's Creighton. Yeah, Creighton.
Yeah. So, all right, there you have it, folks. So our 4 winners of the region that we're predicting. For myself, I like UConn in the East. Doug likes North Carolina in the West. Sean likes Creighton in the Midwest. And in the South, the pick is Duke from Jesse Schule. So, all right, real quickly, and we'll get to some questions and comments. Final 4 national championship picks. All right, so let me start with myself. Final 4 for me. My final 4 is UConn, Marquette, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Marquette might be a surprise pick to some of you out there, but you know what? They got to the conference final without their star point guard. Their star point guard will be back. I like Shaka Smart. He's proven he's a hell of a NCAA tournament coach in general, and great coach overall. Tennessee, dangerous team. And I like North Carolina for all the reasons that Doug brought up. So let's get in. My championship pick is the UConn Huskies. I know I hate betting chalk. Okay, but I like what I see from this team. I like what I see from them all year long. They're well coached. They're deep. They're talented. They have size. They can shoot the three. They have athleticism. There's not a lot that I don't like about this UConn team, or very little that I don't like, if anything. So, Sean, your picks for the Final Four, and then your national championship pick.
My Final Four. I'm not really a little bit of chalk, I guess. I got Auburn out of the East, Arizona out of the West, Houston, hometown out of the South, Creighton for the Midwest, and Arizona over Houston to wrap things up here for me.
All right, so Sean likes the Arizona Wildcats as a national champion, and no wonder he was defending Houston and their 41 points in the championship championship game. Now we know why he was defending. I mean, hey, you know what?
Team can lay an egg every once in a while. It happens.
I mean, Houston can win it all, but by the same token, I just have my concerns for the reasons I said. But in any event, Sean likes Arizona. I like UConn. And Doug, your pick to win it all, my friend, in your Final Four.
Okay. My Final Four, I already mentioned North Carolina's in there. I got UConn over Iowa State. I have Marquette over Houston, but we got to find out on the with Kolek if he is actually healthy. That's going to be the key. So that's the other one. And I got Creighton over Purdue on that one. And in terms of the national championship, I said I got to find somebody that can win 6 games, and I believe that team is Connecticut. And the reason that I picked Connecticut is there's only 2 teams that have the versatility to play any style of college basketball. And they are Auburn and Connecticut. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go with Connecticut because I feel that the amount of NBA talent that they have on that roster, which is always the key virtually every year, whoever wins the national championship. So Connecticut gets my call and to repeat and go down in history of sorts.
Yeah. And again, you make a good point with Auburn. They can play any style because they've proven that all year. Their defense, they're a very underrated defensive team. They score a lot of points, yes, but I mean, you saw the big difference when South Carolina is when they play a team that's maybe equally as good defensively. South Carolina can't match up offensively to what they could do. So the proof is in the pudding there. But Doug also likes UConn to go all the way. And last but not least, Jesse, everybody wants you to talk. And I always want you to talk. And you could talk now and tell us exactly who your Final Four is. And the ears are open all over the world to hear who your pick is to win the national championship, my friend.
All right. Keep this pretty straightforward. The East, the South, and the West are pretty clear cut for me. UConn in the East and Duke in the South, just because I think Houston isn't as consistent as I'd like them to be offensively. In the West, I like North Carolina coming out of the West. And in the Midwest, things get interesting. Purdue, if there was ever any doubt about whether they could be upset again like they have been the last few years, you just have to look to that conference tournament game against Wisconsin, up 4 at the free throw line, missing free throws, giving up buckets, turning the ball over, giving up a buzzer beater to force overtime and losing in overtime. Purdue sucks. Purdue is overrated. Ninja was right. Gonzaga, they've already proven this year they can lose to anybody. They've got some pretty ugly losses. And then their loss to St. Mary's in the conference championship game. Nobody wants Gonzaga either. And Tennessee. Somebody's just said Tennessee's a fraud. I agree with that. I do like South Carolina, but as Sean said, sometimes they can't hang with some of the better offensive teams. And that just leaves Kansas as the last man standing for me, hoping they're getting McCullough back and Dickinson back. As much as Kansas wasn't as good as they normally are this season, Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, sounds right to me.
And your pick is your championship pick?
It's UConn. I don't think
Okay.
anybody's beaten UConn.
Yeah. Okay, so you agree with Ninja on Purdue, but you don't agree with Ninja on Kansas, who that's his new team that he's been picking on right along. But you got myself, Doug, and Jesse all likes UConn to win it all. And Sean's the lone exception. He's on Arizona, which legitimate pick there as well. Let's get to some of the questions and comments here. And Jennifer says, let's go. Thank you for joining us today, Jennifer. The NCAA is corrupt. I've long said, Mr. Transio, that the NCAA is the most corrupt organization in all of America, not just in sports. But that's me, and you tend to agree with me. But any you guys want to have any comments toward the
it's
NCAA?
terrible. They've already screwed up the freaking college football playoff. They screwed this up. The NIT. We won't take conference tournament winners. Just move on. Why? We're talking an hour about how the NCAA does a terrible job. Come on.
Yeah. Well, Doug, he's referring to the college football playoff because he's a proponent of keeping it 4 teams, which I think is ridiculous.
It's 16 now. With 6 guaranteed
14.
spots.
14.
No, yeah, but they're expanding in 2 years. It's going to be up to 16 with,
No,
what do you got, 6 or 8 teams
I
guaranteed?
think it's going 12 to 4. 12 to 14,
Yeah.
I think.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're doing, it's SEC gets guaranteed 3.
Oh, yeah. Well, the
Big
money
Ten-
is
What is that
well,
crap? Come on.
that
Stop it.
The
Stop.
crime with the playoffs is that the non power conference teams, all the teams are going to make at least $12 million a piece. Whenever a team from a non-power conference makes the field, they get 1.8 million. So let's put it this way: if this was legislated by government, this thing would never pass.
Yes, it would. It absolutely would pass.
The
100% it would pass.
well, only if
If that doesn't speak to corruption, I don't know what does. And Sean, do you like
soccer is worse, by the way, in terms of corruption. So
Listen, they've just ruined it. There'll be no more championship games in these conferences. They're gone. So they're not going to play a championship game.
Who cares?
That's a lot of money, though.
Number one. And how about and conference tournaments? They're going to be gone too in another year or two because the NIT says no to conference champions. There'll be no more conference tournaments. So let's see how great that is.
It's a shame because the NIT is going to be obscure in a couple of years unless they find a way. I mean, these teams, look at some of these teams that turned down an NIT bid. NIT.
When's the last time St. John's has been good? Who the hell is St. John's if it turned Indiana? When's the last time you've been relevant?
Syracuse hasn't made a postseason tournament since 2018, and they turned down a bid. I don't get it. You know what I mean? Memphis turns it down. Ole Miss turns it down. Anyway, Sean, I disagree with you on the 4-team playoff. We had a prolonged discussion about that. I think it's great what they're doing. If you enjoy the NCAA tournament, why wouldn't you enjoy an expanded college football playoff? To me, it just, and for us as sports handicappers in our business, it creates more good stuff in terms of
not
that.
Really.
So
not really when I have a team that's
I'm going to let
by
you handle
22
this
over
because Mr. Higgs he's wound up right now. So when that happens,
if I was controlling the show, it would be everybody be on mute but me talking about this nonsense.
I know. I really like Mississippi State. Pound it, my man. This guy's sharp. I like Pound it. Michigan State doesn't have the size to match up versus Mississippi State. Should dominate in rebounds and score in the paint. Yeah, we all agreed with that, Pound it. But Jesse, you want to further elaborate on that since you seem like you're the guy getting frozen out, according to the audience?
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I don't think that requires any elaboration, Ross. But I do want to tackle the college football playoff because I'm going to try and slide right down the middle and say that I think we needed an expansion because I think the 4 teams, there was always 1 or 2 teams getting screwed. There wasn't 8 teams getting screwed out of the playoffs. There was like 1 or 2. So I think that Power 5 conference. Now we don't even have Power 5 conferences because of conference realignment. But I thought that conference champions should be an auto bid to the playoffs, and then a couple at-large bids to get the best of the rest in there. And a 6 or 8 was the magic number. Anything more than 8, I think, starts to get ridiculous. Where, you know, I don't think you want teams in there that have no chance of winning a national championship. And when you get to 14 teams, probably only 6 or 8 of them are actually going to have a chance.
That means how many bowl games are getting wiped out, because these games are going to start in December.
Yeah. Who cares?
Are these?
Who cares? Who cares
right.
about these?
You'll be complaining that there's no.
Anyway, you're contradicting yourself as usual. Yeah, as usual, you're contradicting yourself.
I'm not contradicting myself. I don't want freaking 14. 8 of these teams are going to be bad. 10 of these teams have no shot of winning.
Let me know when
10
you're
teams
done,
have no shot of winning.
We can all breathe. Are you done?
10 teams have no shot of winning.
All right.
How about six teams, Sean? Would that be acceptable to you? 6
is fine.
6 is fine.
So but even now, you need 6 because you're going to get 4 teams out of the SEC and 4 teams out of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I just think
we lost to LSU and Georgia and Alabama, so we're a good team with 4 losses. So we have to go in because we lost to 3 of the top 5 teams in the standings. Get the hell out of here with that crap. No.
Yeah, and every team.
No, but you don't want teams that run the table like Florida State. And I still think they made the right decision leaving Florida State out of the playoffs.
That was an injury. That's an anomaly.
Based on the injury. I think that was the right decision. But you don't want a situation where you have to leave a team like that out. And by having it go to 6 and having conference champions, auto bids, and then a couple at large bids, then you deal with that issue. Doubling it up to 12, 14, 16, 18, that is ridiculous in my opinion.
You know what? I like ridiculous, but Doug, let me brief you in on this all year long. Jesse has a love affair with Sean because he agrees with him 90% of the time. And like any love affair, once in a while you have to compromise. So Sean wants to keep it to 4, and Jesse, to appease him, wants it at 6 or 8. Myself,
6 is fine.
I like.
There's no Pac-12 anymore. It's the SEC and the Big Ten.
You had your time. Doug's been sitting there patiently. Okay, I want him to express his opinion because his opinion is as good and as important as the rest of us. So, Doug, go ahead.
Well, first of all, is that I don't know that I really want to comment on this because I might get muted, and so that's my first topic, getting started here. Second of all, I'm in favor of it, but if you want to tackle an issue which we're actually here to talk about, which is college basketball, I am profoundly against expansion of the NCAA tournament. We have the Michigan States and Virginias of the world this year that don't belong in this thing. And you're going to add 20 teams to make it 98 or 96. Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, This would just be an absolute joke of just mediocre basketball that would ruin literally the first round of the tournament.
Yeah.
But not only that, here's the thing. They expand it, and Moorhead or some small school that loses in their conference, High Point won't be invited anyway. It's going to be the top 9 teams out of the Big Ten, which is really a Big 23. So 14 teams is coming out of that. They might be 7 and 14 in conference, but oh boy, they lost to the teams. They lost to 11 teams in the top 25.
Yeah, how about South Florida? South Florida wins like. Go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they won 23-25 down the stretch. It's terrible.
Of the teams that weren't let in, the only one that I even had sort of a problem with, and it was based on the eye test, was Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is one of the best 68 teams in the field. It's great. There's no doubt of me. St. John's, Rick Pitino. I used to have a book that I got from Rick Pitino after he won a national championship. I read it, thought it was a great book. In the last couple of years, I threw it away because one of the things that his transgressions was he went to dinner with his girlfriend while being married and did some extra stuff, for dessert on that one. So that was another story for another day. And then, he hated his team. Okay. Rick Pitino hated his team 6 games ago. Okay. Now he loves them and thinks they should be in the NCAA tournament. Complete hypocrite. a complete phony. When he writes the book about how to be a used car salesman, I'll consider buying it.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. And he is a salesman. He's a great recruiter. And the bottom line is I contend that without Pitino at St. John's and without the market that St. John's plays in, which is New York City, we wouldn't be making a big deal out of this. That's the bottom line, because I don't think they're as a controversial leave out as some of the other teams on the list that got left out. Let's get to Little Bull. I have UConn winning it all thinking about a +1 425 Final Four hedge with Iowa State. Iowa State is another one. I talked about Duquesne with the first round upset. Iowa State, talking about the textbook team that could frustrate the living hell out of you, especially if they get a league, Jesse, is Iowa State.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Iowa State can beat anybody, and you could easily see one of those 57-55 games that could go either way. So, yeah, they've got a fighting chance. But, I mean, let's face it, the way UConn just rolled through the end of the season, rolled through the conference tournaments, you don't want to step in front of them right now.
No, but he's saying a hedge bet. And so in that regard, it makes a lot of sense. Sean, anything about Iowa State you want to add? And Doug?
I would have said Iowa State's not getting past Drake in the second round, so I wouldn't worry about Iowa State.
No, I like Iowa State. Ross and I did those games, whatever game we did last week, and we talked about Iowa State. And, Iowa State, because they are so good at getting turnovers and then in this case, converting them into points, which is what they also did against Houston. I mean, they're legit. So if they play their game, okay, that's the whole deal. And so it'd be interesting if it's Iowa State and Connecticut, for example, if that happens to what the total ends up being might be a real indicator as to, the direction as to what side to take in that game. All right. Obviously, with Iowa State being lower, that would be why. So
you heard it here first. New Mexico will beat Clemson. You heard it here second. New Mexico will beat Clemson, because I agree. Jesse.
I'm going to stick with the fact that I was hoping to get some of these Mountain West teams as dogs. It looks like everybody's wise to that, and I think the value has been sucked out of the Mountain West teams. Sean, not saying that New Mexico won't beat Clemson. I'm just saying I'm not sure if I'm going to actually get to the bank on it.
Sean, Jesse's hat is starting to go up, which means he's rubbing his head and he's getting tired. It's 3 a.m. in Thailand. So wake him up a little bit. What do you think, New Mexico, Clemson? Do you agree with us or no?
Yeah, I got him. -140. Took him.
All right, there you go.
I jump in day of. These lines were coming up as DraftKings was putting lines up as the brackets were coming. Usually it's like 10, 15 minutes after the entire bracket's done. They were putting them up like literally minutes after. Like, I was like, holy cow. So,
all right, the Mountain West Conference is an upcoming conference. It certainly is. I mean, it's pretty obvious this year. I think that will be even more so now that the Pac-12 is gone. It's the only legitimate conference on the West Coast.
Hey, Ross, let me answer this real fast, which is nothing's real fast when I bring it up. But, like, will the Pac-12 try to steal, like, UNLV and all these teams and bring them to the Pac-12? Like, if I'm the Mountain West, say, no. You should come and join the Mountain West and just obliterate
Washington
the Pac-12.
State and who else got left out of the mix?
Oregon State.
I mean, the smartest thing those two schools could do is at least latch on to the Mountain West in basketball. You know what I mean?
No, they're going to the West Coast Conference next year.
Are they going to West Coast Conference?
Those two teams next year are going to the West Coast Conference, and then they're going to play I believe it's a 6-game football schedule. They'll have other games, of course. They have 6 games against the Mountain West. So, hey, you know what? I'm either good with Pac West or what?
No, don't call. Stop it with the name changes.
So, but either way, I mean, their hand is forced. They got to do something, and it makes the most sense to join the Mountain West, and the Mountain West is to hope they don't get raided, by some like the Big 12 taking San Diego State or somebody else, which is still obviously in the works or potentially in the works.
Yeah. I don't know if San Diego State can contend in football in the Big 12. But anyway, Mace, New Mexico will beat Arizona as well. Don't forget my name. Okay, I won't forget your name, Mace. Easy to remember. And I got New Mexico going to the Sweet 16, and I really was impressed with what they did in the Mountain West Conference Tournament, like I said. But I think it's a bit of a stretch and a big ask for them to knock off Arizona, but you never know. Guys, any thoughts?
They could give them a game for sure. I mean, it just depends upon the mental capabilities of Arizona going into that game. And even though I really like their coach, something's missing in some of these games where this team just either tunes out the coach or they are just not mentally prepared to play. And that's a scary factor to me. And for them to win a national championship or even to get to the Final Four, that's what I worry about with them.
What about you, Sleepy? What do you think?
Well, Ross, you always say that I like to agree with Sean, but there's one clear disagreement that Sean and I have, and this Mountain West team thing is a good example of such. And that's I expected these Mountain West teams to come in and a team like New Mexico, instead of being minus 140, be +2 instead of minus 1.5. I was like Doug said, he was looking for them to be short dogs, and now they're short favorites. For me, that makes me want to walk away. I see the value slipping away from me. For Sean, he likes them even more now. Isn't that right, Sean?
Basically, I wasn't going to change. I'm not changing off of what's the difference? I'm taking them at plus 120. I think they're going to win. I think they're winning outright. I think they're winning anyway. So if they were a 1.5 point dog or a 1.5 point favorite, there's no difference to me. I'm not taking, I'll take them. They're going to lose this one 71-70. Boy, I got a real winner on my hands. Who's thinking like that?
I got you. I'm always looking for the best value, and you got both you and Sean Ross are looking at the lines telling you something, but the line, I want the best line available. I want a line that's better than I think it should be. And as soon as I lose that value, I'm no longer interested. Even if I still like these teams, I still like all these Mountain West teams. And surely if I liked them at +2, I should, if I thought they were going to be a good bet at +2, I should still like them at -2. But
you got any bets in yet already, Jess?
I got a ton of bets in. Absolutely. Well, yeah, let me tell you about that. So the under was, as I've said many times, 33-11 in the first 44 games last year in the first round. Looking at the totals, do you guys think that has influenced the books to lower those numbers, or do the numbers look roughly the same to you?
No, every total went up like 2 points last night from the opener.
Yeah. So they tried to put them down, and the bettors bet them back up.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a couple that went below though, Sean. But for the most part,
I was going over last. I wrote them down right away. I loaded them up on the show, and then I'm like, wait a second, this line's moved 2.5 points. This line's moved.
I don't think. Again, Doug, you can comment on this, but I don't think the odds makers will be deterred by that. Jesse is the best answer I could give you, because the bottom line is people don't line up early that aren't sharp bettors to bet the under, and most guys still. That last minute action is always going to come in on the over on the novice bettors, because with the mentality that public bettors don't like watching a game and hoping that nobody scores. But anyway, Doug, your thoughts?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big, especially in this tournament. I'm not a big totals player. I mean, obviously everything trends towards the under, being at neutral sites, and all of those things that go along with those elements. I think for me, just be selective and be smart. I mean, figure out the ratings on the games. You can use any number of different elements that can get you if you don't have the time to do it yourself, that can get you a final score on the game. And if you have something that is off at least by 3 points, whether it's you do it yourself or you find other information, if you get 3 points, that's something you have to consider if it's off by that amount or more.
Yeah. So there you have it. And Jesse, you've been saying right along, like you said earlier in the program, to you're a kind of guy that doesn't get married to a trend, and if anything, likes to go against that trend. And I guess you can consider what you just said as a trend, that the early round matchups in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament last year, there was a lot of unders. So we'll see. I mean, it's an interesting point to bring up, and I'm not picking on you when I say that, but you of all guys like to look at every game as its own separate entity, you know?
I think you said it best, Ross, though, when you said they know that the late money, they know that they're going to get their over money because people just like betting overs, right? So when you find an under trend, to me, the only question is, the only reason not to continue to bet into an under trend is if the number gets lower. Because if there's an under trend and the number stays the same, for me, you might as well ride that trend. And I will say, last year wasn't the first year that first round games went under the total. I've got the last 5 years unders hitting 58% in the first round of the tournament. It's an every year type. And you think of these first 4 games, always these first 4 games, or not always, but often you see these 52 to 51, 55 to 56 scores in these play-in games. And to me, if the numbers look as they should, they don't look like they're deflated. Well, I've already loaded up. I've got a card full of unders, and my theory is I'm pulling from a pool or a field where I expect 55+% of the total games to go under the total. So I try to select the ones that I like the most, and because I think I'm pulling from a group of games that are more likely to go under than over, I expect to do, hit 6 out of 10 or something along those lines. And hitting 60% with totals is decent money where I come from.
Yeah. Pay attention to early money too, folks, because here's the thing. In this day and age where, and Doug, I'll get to you 1 second. I know you got something on your mind. In this day and age where the local bookie who used to give you credit is pretty much been eliminated for the most part. People are betting on what they have in their account, and small bettors or bettors that are playing with a limited bankroll in their sportsbook account aren't sharp bettors. So they're not going to bet a Thursday game on a Monday because there's 3 days in between in case they don't want to lock their money up for 3 days. So keep that in mind. Doug, go ahead.
No, you mentioned something just dawned on me, and I actually was able to find one of them. First round, when the total's 149 or higher, the last 4 tourneys, 17-6 under. Okay, on that one. So that's one to share. Another one, and I have to go back and look it up myself, but the other one that I like, because I typically use 150s and then to go under in tournaments, and then the ones that are 126 or lower, I go over on those. And I don't remember the exact number, but I'd say over the last 6 years, those are probably right around 60 to 64% overs on those games, because they end up there's more scoring because we're essentially talking about better quality teams. And especially if you follow this year's basketball with the number of free throws that we're getting at the end of games, just like the NBA, those points just add up late.
Yeah, there you have it. So got a couple more comments here that we're going to touch upon before we close up shop. The mighty Blue Jays, baseball is on the horizon. Going back to work, fellas, great show. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Tranzio. Daryl Turner, enjoyed the live show. Can you do this more often? Well, our plan, we have been doing it every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, but there's a lot of logistics to go into why we only do one live show a week. But we're glad that you enjoy it. And you could also comment on our archive shows as well, Daryl, and we'll do our best to get back to you in that regard. And Ninja's right in there. And Ninja also said that he doesn't like, who was it that he didn't like? TCU, I think. And he said their offense resembles a WNBA team. Is that right, Sean? I lost. Yeah. So Ninja seems to be prophetic with these. Little Bull says Oregon over the Gamecocks. Yeah, Oregon's an interesting team, guys. They were banged up for most of the year. They went on a run in the Pac-12 tournament, and that's a perfect example of a team that was not going to get in a major conference unless they won the tournament. And it's a reason why one team, at least, they stole their bid. So,
yeah, exactly. Agree.
I mean, a week ago, that line would have been South Carolina about what, 3-4 points, probably.
Yeah. All right, Jennifer Lee. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't like the Oregon pick. Doug made mention of this. Teams that play 4 games in 4 days have often are spent. And then South Carolina, the best defensive team in an SEC that features Alabama, Auburn, all these powerhouse offensive teams.
Dropping 95.
I mean, they beat Tennessee. They beat this is a team that's got 27 wins. Why would you want to step in front of this team? And it's a pick 'em to boot. I think it's South Carolina or nothing, if you're asking me.
Yeah.
Jennifer says, what about Boise State? I like Boise State to win their first round game. Boise State's an interesting team. I mean, that's a team that's very good offensively and defensively, which is a rarity in modern day college basketball. But any thoughts, guys, on quick thoughts, that is, on Boise State?
I concur. Boise State wins their game and covers the spread on that one.
And Jesse or Sean, your thoughts on Boise State and what you've saw from them so far, and anything you want to add in terms of, can they make a deep run? Could they win their first round game to start?
Yeah, I like Boise State enough, and I think of all the Mountain West teams that I think have maybe become a little bit too trendy and a little bit too popular, Boise State is one where there's still some pretty decent value to be had there.
Jennifer also has a very good comment, and it's worth noting. Iowa State has a weak strength of schedule this year. The weak strength of schedule stems from their non-conference schedule, Jennifer. And it's a good point, because when you say a team is not as good as their record because they feasted off the non-conference schedule is one thing. If they went maybe 10-10 in Big 12 play, but this team was a top Big 12 team, top 4 team that posted a great record in the Big 12 and arguably the best conference in America right now. So it's a good point on one hand, but you have to look beyond that and say, okay, maybe they went 15-0 in their non-conference schedule, and I don't know that. I'm being hypothetical. And then they only went 10-10 in Big 12 play. Are they as good a 25-5 team or whatever, 25-10? No, it's not the case. But Sean, any thoughts?
They went 13-5 in conference, 9-3 out of conference, and so they a couple not great losses there. I mean, Virginia Tech and A&M on neutrals they lost to.
Sampson has plenty of choke history. I don't
know if it's choke. I mean, when he's at Houston, he's had some injuries that kind of cost that team.
Yeah. All right, I want to see another Iowa State versus BYU. Little Bull obviously is a Big 12 fan, and for whatever reason, he likes that matchup. It's a contrast to styles where Iowa State plays a slower tempo game, and like I said, with BYU, when I was introduced, my upset pick with Duquesne is that could frustrate BYU. But any thoughts in that regards, guys, in terms of either one of those two teams?
I still like BYU. I just, the way BYU finished down the stretch, I think they're a scrappy little team that can play with anybody.
I just don't think about this.
Yeah.
No, I meant versus Iowa State, because I mean they're going to be a dog against Iowa State, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I like this BYU team.
All right, so we got Champ Ross Fantasy Boxing Predictions League. Whoa, all right, that's a long handle. Anyway, Nevada, Dayton, who you got? Well, I think I showed my hand on that because I like Nevada making a deep run. Don't like the way Dayton finished the year, guys. Doug, anything on Dayton that you want to share with the audience?
Well, if you watch some of those Friday night games with them on ESPN or ESPN2, is that their scoring droughts in certain games lasted 4 to 6 minutes. Okay, and it just like takes the life out of it. So they build a nice lead, and all of a sudden they just give it right back. Now, they won many of those games, but just it hurts them, and it hurt them, in the semifinals the other night. And so that's why I'm not a big Anthony Grant fan either. I think the guy's an okay coach, but I certainly don't think he's an elite coach.
Yeah. Again, playing in the Atlantic 10, which was a top heavy conference. But again, I don't like the way they finished the season in the Atlantic 10. Yep. They did have a non-conference schedule, which was quite formidable, that they did awfully well in. But I just, again, you're looking at the way teams finish, and I don't like the way they finished in going into the tournament. So we'll see. Anthony Grant, Doug, always known as a great recruiter, but leaves a lot to be desired with the X and O's in the game time decisions. If Utah State keeps the game close with TCU, I might take the over live, but I don't think TCU is a juggernaut, but they're athletic, but they can shoot. The thing with me with Utah State, and this goes on for years, is they have these great regular seasons. They have great conference tournaments. They dominate their conference. They get in to the big dance, and everybody's like, okay, watch out for Utah State in the first round. And it just seems like they never get out of the first round, guys.
Not enough athletes. That's the problem. I mean, they're a really good, sound shooting team. They play, pretty good defense, but there's just not enough athletes on the team. And that's, once you get into this tournament where you, for the most part, I mean, other than maybe 10 of the teams, if you don't, athleticism matters, as does top level talent, and they just don't have it.
Yep. And here's a guy, Al, who's been with us weekly. Montana State wins the play-in game. Who's Montana State playing again, guys? Off the top of your head, I can't remember.
Grambling.
I think.
Yeah, Grambling won their conference. They finished the year strong, but you look at the level of play that both teams faced, and I can't disagree with you, Al. And another thing is, keep in mind with Wagner, they won the Northeast Conference tournament. They're going to be playing on Tuesday, I think. And they did so with just 7 healthy scholarship players. So I'm not crazy about them. I could tell you that. All right.
We're talking about that. How about Howard? Okay. And I'm going to bring up Howard for this reason. Howard has I forget the player's name. You'll hear about it. He's 26 years old. Okay. Playing for Howard. Multiple injuries, everything else. And the thing I like about the whole story is he is older than Jason Tatum.
There you go. He's an 8th year senior. Go ahead, Jess.
I got some terrible news for you guys. I think it was Sean saying how much he's a fan of Shaka Smart and his coaching prowess. Terrible news. I was looking it up. Oh, it was you. Okay. Yeah. And he's been around for a long time, Shaka Smart. And terrible news is I was looking at his Wikipedia page this afternoon. It turns out I'm 1 year older than Shaka Smart, and that's terrible news for me.
That's news breaking info. And we'll leave you with this in terms of our college basketball thoughts. Sean Higgs contends that every college basketball team and every player in college basketball should hit 90% or more of their free throw opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I'll settle for 85. There's no reason you can't hit a free throw. There's just none. Yeah. No one's guarding you.
So anybody who shoots less than 90% in college basketball from the free throw line, Doug, is not a very good free throw shooting team.
Well, I'll defend Sean on this level, is that when guys go from college to pro, with rare exception, do they learn to shoot free throws better? Okay. I mean, just across the board. So from that standpoint, is there a coach in there in college probably to help them shoot free throws? Probably not. Are you expecting a player just to go off on his own to shoot 100 or 150 free throws a day in order to get better? Not every player is going to want to do that. So from that standpoint, it's different. But when you're paid, and I guess we could make the case now that nil players are paid, but still you become a professional. That is your job. And so from that standpoint, they learn that skill better. And it is nothing more than an acquired skill. That's all it is. Because honestly, when I played high school basketball, I was maybe 50% free throw shooter as a freshman. And my senior year, after shooting 100 free throws a day for about 3 months, ended up right around 88%. Okay, on the charts that were kept. And
that's
everything
terrific.
else. So it's nothing. It's an acquired skill, and you have to want to go get it.
You are
A lot of
now
guys
one
in
of
the NBA aren't hitting 88%, Doug.
What's that?
no.
A lot of guys in the NBA aren't hitting 88%.
Well, no, believe me, I wouldn't walk out there and hit 88% now either. But,
Sean, is
but
Doug one of your favorite guys now? Did he hit 88% as a senior in high school?
He's always been one of my favorite guys, but that just he definitely jumped over you now, though, Ross.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's got to defend you on certain levels. I got to defend you on every level, and I can't tell you how exhausting that is, Doug. Having to defend him on every level is from his 14 playoffs to his 90%. Everybody should be 90% or above. It is just exhausting. Why do you think Jesse's so tired? Look at Jesse. He's ready to go to sleep right now. Why do you think he's so tired? He's got a love affair with Sean, and right now he's going, man, I love this guy, but it's getting harder and harder to defend him. So
batting
I can't believe I'm older than Shaq at Smart.
All I can say is, it's been my honor and pleasure to join this crew today. It's been a very wonderful learning experience on many levels. I don't know if wonderful is the right word, but it's been an interesting one for sure. Okay, on that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I can speak for Jesse and Sean when I say that we're glad to have you, Doug. You've been a welcome addition on this show, and you're a wealth of knowledge, and also a guy that has a great sense of humor like us. We do as well. And you speak a little more than Jesse, and a little less than me, and certainly nowhere near as much as Sean. And God forbid us all if Sean was a host of the show. Oh, my Lord. Anyway, in any event, look at folks. You're filling out all your March Madness brackets right now, right? And we're hoping that some of these upset picks and some of the games that we discussed help you along with these March Madness brackets. By the way, if you go to Gambler's World right now, fill out your March Madness bracket with us. Why should you do so? Well, number one, we have $1,000 in prize money we're giving away. There's no entry fee. It's absolutely free. The winner is going to win $500. We're going to pay the top 4 guys. And on top of that, if you're in the top 10, you're going to get a $50 credit at the site. And in addition, if you're not in the top 10, but you have at least 2 teams that make it to the Final Four in your bracket, you're going to get a $50 credit. So go to gamblersworld.net, gamblersworld.com right now, either or, and get yourself going with the March Madness bracket with us. And not only prize money, but $50 credits going around the board for any of the great handicappers we have. All right, Doug, don't forget you can find his picks over at docsports.com. Don't forget at our site, gamblersworld.net, where myself, Jesse, and Sean are. $199 will get us our March Madness package, and that's guaranteed, folks. You don't win, you don't make a profit with that package. If you paid the whole $199 and did it without credit, you're going to get $199 credit. Whatever you paid for that package, we will credit your account back. If you don't make a purchase, and I would go out on a limb and say that's going to be a moot point for any one of us at this time of year. So we will be back tomorrow with Jesse and Sean. We'll be talking more college, and actually NCAA tournament at that time. Wednesday with Jesse and Sean as well on the NCAA tournament. Thursday with Doug, and we'll be discussing some of Friday's second round or Friday's first round matchups, I should say. And a great week in store. And don't forget our live show on Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. For Jesse Schule, Sean Higgs, Doug Upstone, and Ross Benjamin, don't forget to subscribe and like. Give us a like, folks. Small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort we put in. And take care and God bless.